made. But usually the brightest and most impactful talents are ones that are born. In this case, Bill Bojangles Robinson was definitely one of those people. Bill Robinson, or known as Bill Bojangles Robinson, was a famous tap performer and film performer in the vaudeville era, Broadway, and Hollywood. He was most famous in the first half of the 20th century. My first semester here at AMDA, I remember hearing his name during musical theater history class. He always caught my attention, and once I did a lot more research on him, I knew that he was somebody who I needed to talk about. Bill Robinson changed not only the world of performing, but was also a symbol of empowerment for African American people everywhere. First, I'm going to be talking about his upbringing. Next, I will be talking about his accomplishments in performing. And lastly, I will talk about the way he impacted the world. So let's start with the way that he grew up. Bill Robinson was born in 1878, which was the peak of racial injustice. Slavery had just been abolished, but segregation was still a very real and apparent issue. In an article by Harlem World, it states that he started dancing at the mere age of 5. Bill Robinson actually stopped going to school after 5th grade and not knowing how to read and write, and he then pointed his attention to working and also street dancing to provide for his family. According to the A&E television documentary based on his life, he got his nickname Bojangles, which means mischief maker, because he would actually steal from the locals to get by. Bill Bojangles Robinson's life was filled with many experiences, not only as a performer, but he was also a drummer in a black regiment and a soldier in the Spanish-American War. He was also 19 when that happened. At the age of 22, after the war, he moved to New York and started performing in vaudeville. It was there when he met George Cooper, a famous black comedian at the time. They became partners, and then Cooper actually got him into a lot of really prestigious vaudeville shows. And he also taught him the art of comedy. Sadly, this partner did come to an end because Bill did develop a very serious gambling issue. It was said that he would gamble away a majority of their paychecks, so Cooper left, leaving Robinson without a partner. But in 1916, Bill Robinson was the first solo performer in a vaudeville act who was African American. This was because at the time, they had what was called a two-colored rule, which basically meant that if you were going to perform in vaudeville as an African American, you had to have a partner. There were no soloists, but Bill was the first one to do that. So now let's talk about his performance career. Bill Robinson is still to this day known as the most famous and influential tap dancer of all time. Not only was he a star on vaudeville, but he also made his way to a number of Broadway shows. He was most famously known for his stair dance, which was basically one of his tap numbers where he would go up and down a flight of stairs tapping. Very iconic. After he made his impact on the stage, he made his way to film. Bill Robinson was in 14 Hollywood films, and along with that, he performed with Shirley Temple on television. Bill Robinson was a truly successful, well-rounded performer. So now let's talk about the impact he made on the African American community. Bill Robinson broke many barriers in his time, which paved the way for others to do the same. Like I mentioned before, he was the first soloist in a vaudeville act in front of a white audience, which made it very possible for others to do the exact same thing. According to the A&E television broadcast, which was a documentary about Bill Robinson, it was stated by somebody, this is a quote, Doors were opened for us that would have never been opened had he not been there. Bill Robinson not only broke a barrier by performing solo, but he also broke the barrier by performing with white performers as well during a time of very harsh integration issues. An article by the Smithsonian Magazine states, his first film role came in 1930 with Dixiana, a film that had a predominantly white cast. This was a very big deal at the time because it really helped pave the way for desegregation. Also, apart from his performing being a very big step with impacting the world, he also made a contribution in other ways. He was a part of creating the Negro Actors Guild of America, and also constantly was raising money for the African American community. These both really helped Black performers thrive. So, let's wrap this up. First, I talked to you about the way that Bill Robinson grew up. Next, I touched on his career. And lastly, I talked about the impact he made on the world. One thing that I really hope you take away from learning about Bill Robinson is that any barrier can be broken with persistence and talent. Thank you.